Suge Knight is one of the scariest dudes in the rap game. He's currently in jail for killing his own homie. But there's one rapper who he's actually terrified of. 50 Cent is a rap legend, but most fans have no idea about the shocking story behind why Suge Knight is so terrified of him. So today we're breaking down the entire situation. Before 50 Cent ever stepped foot in a recording studio, he already had a name in the streets. Coming up in South Jamaica, Queens, 50 was surrounded by hustlers and gangsters ever since he was a kid. His own mom even moved weight in the neighborhood. She was just doing what she had to do to survive and provide for her family. But at 8 years old, 50 took his first major loss. It's not clear how it happened, but 50's mom tragically died in a fire when he was just a kid. Luckily, his grandparents were able to take him in, so he had a place to stay. They wanted him to go down a different path than his mom. But before he was even a teenager, 50 was already in the streets and following in her footsteps. Selling drugs let 50 support himself, but it didn't take long for it to start catching up with him. When he was a teenager, he got caught bringing a gun and drug money to high school. Before that, he was trying to move smart and keep his life in the streets away from his grandma. But after getting caught at school, he came out and told her that he was moving weight in the neighborhood like his mom did back in the day. 50 avoided the cops for a while, but when you're in the streets like that, it's only a matter of time before they catch you. In 1994, 50 tried to make a cocaine deal, but it turned out that the dude he was selling to was an undercover cop who ended up booking him over the situation. Selling coke to a cop is bad luck, but what happened next was way worse. The police raided 50's crib a few weeks after the cocaine arrest and found more drugs and a gun. The judge handed down a 3 to 9 year sentence in prison, and 50 could have been locked up until his mid-20s. Luckily for him, he was offered a deal to go to boot camp instead though. So 50 jumped on the deal and was back on the streets in less than a year. Almost catching a sentence like that made 50 realize he needed to find a way out of the streets. And that's when he decided it was time to give rapping a try. For a while, 50 didn't have any success in the industry, but everyone around him knew how good he was at writing bars. His first real break came when one of his homies linked him up with the legendary Jam Master Jay from Run DMC. And after that, everything started to change. Jam Master Jay knew 50 had potential, but back then he was just good at writing bars and didn't know how to turn them into real songs. A lot of 50's tracks are famous for their hooks, and Jay is the one who taught him how to make them. They made a project together that never came out, and then 50 signed a deal with Columbia Records. It's not clear why he left Jay, but what he did next might have gotten his own homie killed. After 50 signed the Columbia deal, he dropped a track called Ghetto Quran and talks about a bunch of street dudes from Queens. He name-dropped an infamous drug dealer named Kenneth Supreme McGriff and his nephew Prince and raps, "Yo, when you hear talk of the South Side, you hear talk of the team. See, niggas feared Prince and respected Preem. For all you slow motherfuckers, I'ma break it down iller. See, Preem was a businessman and Prince was the killer. Remember, he used to push the bulletproof BM. Dudes like Supreme don't like their business being aired out like that in public, and rumors said that Supreme wanted everyone to blacklist 50 in the industry and stop rocking with him. Jam Master Jay allegedly didn't listen to the order, and in 2002, someone came into a studio and shot him in the head. Rumors were flying that Supreme was the one who put a hit out on Jay, but in 2020, 3 dudes were finally indicted for the murder, and the cops think Jay was actually involved with the drug deal that went wrong. Jay's death was a major loss, but that wasn't the last time 50's life was affected by violence. 50 was hustling hard in the rap game, and it finally started to pay off when he dropped the track How to Rob. The song is all about how 50 would jack all the biggest names in the industry, and it showed everyone off the jump that he wasn't afraid of making enemies with anyone. He went after Jay-Z and rapped, "What Jigga just sold, like 4 mil? He got something to live for. Don't want a nigga putting 4 through that Bentley coupe door." Then he sent shots at Master P, Will Smith, Jada Smith, and Missy Elliott with, "I'll catch P and soak the shocker right after the Grammys. And Will Smith and Jada ass down in Miami. Run up on Timbaland and Missy with the pound. Like, you, give me the cash, you, put the hot dog down." Calling people out by name like that had 50's name buzzing immediately, but it almost got him killed too. Back in May 2000, 50 was leaving his grandma's crib with a homie. Then right before they drove off, someone rolled up on him and started letting off shots. 50 got hit up 9 times and had to be rushed to the hospital. He barely survived getting shot that many times, but somehow he pulled through and was released from the hospital 2 weeks later. Supreme never got booked for putting the green light on 50, but pretty much everyone knows that's how it went down. He allegedly hired a dude named Daryl Baum, aka Hamo, to take out 50 because of the Ghetto Quran track. 50 survived the shooting, but 3 weeks later, the alleged gunman got hit up and didn't make it out alive. And on the track Many Man, 50 raps, "I ain't gonna spell it out for you motherfuckers all the time. Are you illiterate, nigga? You can't read between the lines? In the Bible it says, what goes around comes around. Hamo shot me, 3 weeks later, he got shot down. Now it's clear that I'm here for a real reason. Cause he got hit like I got hit, but he ain't fucking breathing." Supreme is serving life in prison for ordering hits on two dudes named Eric Smith and Troy Singleton, but 50 wasn't going down easy. A few months before the shooting, a rapper named Black Child stabbed 50 over his beef with Ja Rule. He had only been active in the industry for a little while at that point, but 50 was making it clear to everyone that he could go to war with anyone and come out on the other side. Not long after, 50 linked up with Dr. Dre and Eminem to create one of the best-selling albums of all time, but that's when he ran into the dude everyone else in the industry was terrified of, Suge Knight. Suge Knight came up in Compton repping the Mob Power Rule Bloods. He's a massive dude who played football in high school, but at the same time, he was already using his size and strength to put pressure on dudes in the street. His homies and him used to take the bus to wealthy neighborhoods and rob rich kids on their way home from school. Suge was good enough to play 2 games for the LA Rams back in '87, but he didn't last long in the NFL. After he left football behind, he got started in the music industry working as a bodyguard for artists like Bobby Brown, and that's when Suge realized where the real money was. He saw that even though artists were the ones bringing in the money, it was the producers and managers whose pockets were getting full, so he started his own publishing company and was making real money. A dude named Mario Johnson was one of Suge's first clients. According to rumors, Johnson wrote Vanilla Ice's massive hit Ice Ice Baby but wasn't getting paid for it. So while Ice was out in LA, Suge started popping up wherever he was. One time Ice was at a steakhouse with his security guards when Suge walked in with his goons and sat down at the table. He just stared Ice down for a while, then asked him, "How you doing?" Then a few months later, Ice walked into his hotel room on the 15th floor and Suge was already inside waiting for him. Suge and his goons put a beating on Ice's crew. Then Suge allegedly took Ice over to the balcony and forced him to look down over the railing. Rumors say that Suge actually held Ice over the edge of the balcony and forced him to sign over the royalties for Ice Ice Baby. But Ice says that's not how it went down. According to Ice, he was very scared during the situation, but Suge never held him over the balcony. It's not clear how everything went down that night, but Ice was so terrified of Suge that he signed the contracts right there and lost out on around $4 million. Suge wanted to take the business to a new level, so he linked up with an infamous drug kingpin named Harry Yo and started Death Row Records with Dr. Dre. Suge pressing Ice for the royalties is a wild story, but it's nothing compared to what went down between him and Eazy-E. Dre, Eazy, and the rest of NWA changed rap forever, but they couldn't hold the crew together for long. Dre thought Eazy and their manager Jerry Heller was hoarding the cash that they were all bringing in, and Dre wanted out of his contract. Eazy wasn't gonna let Dre just walk out like that though. He wouldn't let Dre out of the deal, so that's when Suge stepped in. Nobody knows exactly what happened next, but this is how it went down according to people involved with the situation. Suge rolled up on Eazy at the studio and told him to release Dre, the DOC, and Michelet from their Ruthless Records contracts. When Eazy refused, Suge's goons threatened him with metal pipes, and Suge told Eazy that he had kidnapped Jerry Heller and was holding him in a van. Eazy still wasn't backing down, so that's when Suge allegedly pulled out a piece of paper that had Eazy's mom's address written on it. That was enough to convince Eazy that Suge wasn't going to stop until he got what he wanted, so he released Dre and the others from their contracts. Dre and Suge started Death Row and took over the entire West Coast, but that's also when Suge's brutality went to another level. In '92, he was already on probation for assaulting his girlfriend and cutting her hair off in the middle of the street, and he violated their probation orders at the studio when he attacked 2 rappers. George and Linwood Stanley were 2 brothers who came to Death Row to work, but one of them used a studio phone without asking Suge first. Suge upped the strap and made them take off their clothes. Then he brutally pistol whipped both of them and let off a shot. Suge wasn't just a violent street dude though. He was a violent street dude with powerful connections everywhere. He should have been locked up for what went down, but it turns out that he had ties to the prosecutor running the case against him. The prosecutor's daughter was actually signed to Death Row, and Suge was even living in the house he owned during the case. After that, it looked like Suge was untouchable, and the violence started getting even worse. While he was beefing with Diddy, Suge tried to get his address from a promoter who knew him. When the promoter wouldn't give up the info, Suge allegedly smashed champagne bottles on the dude and made him drink his own pee. Even his own employees were terrified of Suge. If you did something that made him mad, Suge and his goons would drag you into a back room at Death Row and brutally beat you while everyone else had to keep working while listening to the screams. One time a Death Row worker made him mad over something, so Suge dragged him into the bathroom and made him strip in front of his enforcers. Suge sat on his back while everyone else peed in the bucket. Then he made the employee drink it at gunpoint. Another wild story from the same time is when Suge allegedly had a manager named Happy Walters kidnapped. Walters was repping some huge artists like RZA and Cypress Hill, and Suge allegedly sent his goons after him while Walters was in LA. They allegedly kidnapped him, and 2 days later, someone discovered Walters in a random hotel room covered in bruises and cigarette burns. He stopped managing most of the rappers on his roster after it went down, but he never filed charges against Suge because he suffered amnesia from it. Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg became superstars on Death Row and turned their label into one of the hottest in the game, and it blew up even more after Suge brought in Tupac. They were running the West Coast and putting pressure on the rest of the industry, but Dre wasn't rocking with how Suge ran things. Dre helped kick off the entire gangster rap wave with NWA, but in real life, he just liked to focus on the music and keep his head down in the studio. Besides assaulting women, Dre wasn't into all of the violence, so he left Death Row right at the peak and started his Aftermath Entertainment label. Without Dre, Death Row would have never popped off like it did. He helped Suge become one of the richest dudes in the industry, but when he left, it sparked a massive beef that almost got him killed. Tupac wasn't down with the betrayal either, and on the track Toss It Up, he took shots at Dre and said, "No longer Dre Day, Ernie Diverci, blown and forgotten, riding for plotting child's play. Check your sexuality, as fruity as his Alizé, quick to jump ship, punk trick, what a dumb move. Cross Death Row, now who you gonna run to?" But not before long, Tupac was dead and Suge Knight was locked up for assaulting a Crip named Orlando Anderson the night Pop died. He had to sit down for a few years, but then Suge came out of prison right when 50 Cent and Dre were starting to take over together, and nobody expected what happened next. Suge was like the rap game's boogeyman, and nobody knew what would happen when he got out of prison. A lot of people were terrified of him being back on the streets, but there was one rapper in the game that had him shook. While Suge was locked up, Dre had taken everything to a new level. Aftermath was blowing up, Dre's album 2001 went 6 times platinum, plus he scored a massive win by signing Eminem and then 50 Cent. Suge came out right when 50 was blowing up, so he decided to roll up and press him while he was shooting the video for In the Club. According to Bizarre from D12, they were all working on the set when someone came in yelling that Suge was outside. Most of the people scattered and ran off, but 50 wasn't about to back down like that. Suge had like 30 dudes with him. He already had a reputation as one of the most brutal dudes in rap history, but obviously that didn't bother 50. He walked right up to Suge and asked him, "What's up?" But Suge didn't even answer. He just took a puff of his cigar, signaled to his crew that it was time to leave, then dipped out. Most dudes in that situation would have ran away or at least showed some fear, but that was when Suge realized that 50 wasn't the one to play with. There's also a rumor that 50 had another run-in with Suge and pulled an Uzi on him. Nobody really knows if that ever happened, but that wasn't the only time 50 and his crew scared Suge. A couple years after the In the Club situation, 50 and the rest of G-Unit were at the Vibe Awards with Dr. Dre. Everything was cool at first, but right before Dre took the stage to accept his Lifetime Achievement Award, a dude named Jimmy Johnson rushed him and threw a punch. It sparked a huge brawl, and in the middle of all the chaos, 50's homie Young Buck allegedly stabbed Johnson and collapsed his lung. Nobody knew why Johnson was going after Dre, but a year later, the truth finally came out. Johnson was facing life in prison because he already had 2 felony strikes on his record. So he flipped to the police and told them that Suge is the one who set everything up. According to him, Suge handed over $5K in cash and forgave a debt that Johnson's brother owed, and that's why he ran up on Dre at the awards show. Suge wasn't the only scary dude trying to put pressure on 50 and his crew though. Back in the 2000s, the game was being managed by Jimmy Henchman. Henchman is allegedly the dude who set Tupac up to get robbed at Quad Studios and helped spark the war between the West and East Coast. And in 2007, he allegedly sent shooters at 50. After 50 and the game had their falling out, Tony Yayo and Lodi Mack caught Henchman's son, Lil Henchman, on the street. Tony Yayo slapped him up, then Mack allegedly pistol whipped him. After it went down, someone shot up Yayo's mom's house and he rapped about it on the track Straight Outta Southside and said, "Yeah, y'all motherfuckers shot my mama crib up. My sister, my niece in there. I'm getting y'all niggas hit for $500. I'ma be in London, motherfucker." Then while 50 was shooting the music video for the track I'll Still Kill, Henchman allegedly tried to have him taken out. A bunch of his goons rolled up with silenced guns, but one of them accidentally let off a shot early and blew up the plant.
So if you would have shot, somebody would, I'm quite sure somebody would have shot back, but you got to silence it, so that would probably give you the up. But I guess they didn't know how to handle a weapon or something like that. It's in the paperwork. And the gun went off in the car. So as the gun went off in the car, I guess it jammed and they backed out of what they wanted to do.
Henchman couldn't touch 50, but he did get his homie Lodi Mack killed. Mack had pleaded guilty for assaulting Lil Henchman, and 2 weeks after he came home, he was murdered in the middle of the street. Henchman's own shooters flipped on him, and in 2014, he got handed down a life sentence for Mack's death. 50 also survived a wild shootout with the game and his crew after he kicked him out of G-Unit. 50 announced it on Hot 97 Live, and when Game heard the news, he got his homies together and headed over to the station. Both crews started letting off shots when they ran into each other, but luckily only one dude got hit in the leg and survived. 50 making it through all of that while also selling more records than anyone else in the game was crazy, and it proved to everyone that Suge had a good reason to be afraid of him. A lot of rappers aren't really about the life they write about. But 50 was even more savage than his music sounded. While 50 was blowing up, surviving crazy street situations, and taking over the game, Suge's life and career were going downhill fast. In 2003, he went back to prison for attacking a parking lot attendant. Then in 2008, he got knocked out at a nightclub and filed for bankruptcy the same year. Suge barely survived getting shot 6 times in 2014 at a VMA party. And 1 year later, he ran over his own homie during the filming of Straight Outta Compton and went down for voluntary manslaughter. It allegedly all started because Suge was pressed about the way he was being shown in the movie. And now he's serving 28 years over the situation and probably won't ever see outside again. 50's career isn't as hot as it used to be, but he's still way better off than Suge. He made millions off his music, and then way more from business deals like the $100 million he got off of vitamin water. Suge Knight tried to press 50 like he did everyone else back in the day, but he got a huge surprise when 50 didn't back down from him. 50's wild come up in Queens made him ready for war, and when Suge rolled up, there was no way he'd run. A lot of people are still afraid of Suge Knight even though he's locked up, but he definitely doesn't want any smoke with 50 and his crew.